Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. This episode is sponsored by GrowX Labs. Quick question. When you're leading a team or growing a business, who helps you think clearly? GrowX Labs offers executive decision support, real-time access to a trusted strategist who helps you navigate tough calls, leadership blind spots, and everything in between. No fluff, no long-term commitment, just fast, honest insight from someone who gets it. If you're a founder or exec and need a sounding board, go to growxlabs.com/mark. That's grwxlabs.com/mark and book a discovery call today. I feel like most of us have had some kind of experience, whether we are a business owner or we're just a cog in the corporate machine, where we get into a good situation, things are running really great, and it can be like a smaller situation, and then somehow it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and you kind of like lose some of the roots of what made what you were doing so great and made it the success that it was. And that's one of the things that I think about when I look into the story and basically from at least where I'm sitting, what Francis Flair, one of the many things he is hoping to accomplish. He is the founder of she is the founder and chief retention officer at Flair Consulting Group. The chief retention officer, I feel, is very important here when talking about what Francis does. And one of the things that I feel is at the heart of what he is doing is customer service. And as the saying goes, the customer is always right. However, tying in what I just said to that, you also need like the systems, and you need to have a good just general employee experience in order to make the customer experience truly right and justifiable. And I'm just gonna read off a couple things quick here. So Flair Consulting Group: most small business leaders struggle to improve their team's customer service experience skills, leading to lower profits. At Flair Consulting Group, they give small businesses clear systems to follow so they can deliver consistently great customer service experience, charge a premium price, and increase profits. It would help if I would read that correctly. But putting all that aside, Francis also has like a really inspiring story. He certainly didn't get to this point overnight, and I will leave the spoilers out of this so that Francis can tell the story on his own. But without further ado, after 3 minutes of this, Francis, welcome to Mark My Words. How you doing today, my friend?
I I am lovely, and thank you for the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to delivering value and helping your audience and learning from each other. So looking forward to it.
I I am looking forward to all of the above, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I feel like what you specialize in and what I think you are going to talk about today, I should also mention that uh, Francis also has something that he calls the retention drift cycle, which I'm also looking forward to hearing about. I didn't mention that before the call. But before we get into all that, I usually start every episode by asking about what inspired people, what they may have wanted to do growing up. And I know that you eventually wound up majoring in entrepreneurship and you got a Bachelor of Science as well. Your master's is in leadership, entrepreneurship, management. But there's also a story that I think we need to hear just to kind of give us a good feel for where you've been and how you got here. So I'm going to give you the floor to sum it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think context is important. I often ask my audience and people I talk to is like, have you ever wondered or like thought about how you got here? Like what got you here? And for me, if anyone listening, watching, you are listening to this, if you can tell from my exotic accent, you probably think I live somewhere in California. Ha 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 ha. I'm joking, all right? But I come from Ghana, West Africa, and I grew up in an orphanage in Ghana from the age of 9. And at the orphanage, I was there with my little brother. And I remember a time where he got in trouble for not making his bed. And as the bigger brother, that was a big deal. Like, there was nothing I could do. But what I did not know was this was going to be a very impactful journey for me when I moved to the US, which we're not going to get into. From a little boy growing up in an orphanage, had a dream of going to college in the US, and God being so good, that all worked out. And so that's how I ended up here. But in my career and how I got here, that moment with my brother getting in trouble at the orphanage was the beginning of everything as to how I ended up here. And so when I graduated college, the next best job I could find due to immigration and trying to get my things in order was at a convenience store. And one time I worked 16 hours at a convenience store because I had a morning shift. It was Thanksgiving. Of course, the afternoon guy did not show up. And so I ended up working the 16 hours from 7 to 11, even though I did not work at 7-Eleven. Okay. So at that point, I realized I needed to do something different. The next best thing was at a dry cleaner. And the only reason why I knew about even this dry cleaning business was because during lunches, their employees and the assistant manager at the time would come to the convenience store to get their snacks, their drinks. And so one time she was like, "Hey, we are hiring. We think you'll be a good fit. Why don't you try it out?" And I knew nothing about dry cleaning, knew nothing about the business, didn't know like you could clean soiled clothes and make so much money. And so I jumped ship. And when I got there, that's where everything changed because this was a family owned operation and they wanted to be a premium brand. And so they quickly saw the talent and the skills that I brought to board, right? And so they actually made me a manager, and that's where everything changed because now I was tasked with the responsibility of getting us operationally out of this construct and this mindset of being a dry cleaner. But we wanted to be a premium brand, a premium service who happened to be cleaning clothes, right? But the only differentiator was going to be the great service and the great experience we delivered. And so it was my responsibility to ensure that we got that done. And we attended conferences, we attended trainings, seminars, master classes, what have you. And if you have attended any of these, what they do in these places is they teach you the why and the what with the hope and the idea that you come to them for the how. So we would go get pumped up, get energized, come back, and then 3 to 6 weeks, months down the line, and it's like we have nothing to measure, or we had nothing coming out of this. Like the ROI was very, very unclear. And so we kept doing what we could. But a pivotal moment was when one of my employees came to me crying because a customer had complained that she was rude. And knowing that individual, like I knew she was a good person, but that was not who she was. And this was a high school student who was just trying to have a job in between school and the summers. And it really got to me because it took me back to my time at the orphanage with my little brother, Bernard, where 18 years earlier he had gotten in trouble and there was nothing I could do. And so it's like all I could see in this moment was my little brother standing in front of me. Like I had to send her home that day. And for some reason, that gave me this kind of courage. And I went to the owner at the time and I said, we are doing everything right. We seem to have the right mindset, the right attitude when it comes to delivering great service and great experience. But I think there's something that we are missing. Can I make uh, can I make a proposal? Can I make you an offer? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And so I told him, well, we're spending about $5,000 to $10,000 every single year going to these conferences, doing these seminars, because you have to pay for the airfare, the hotel, the tickets for the conferences. Then you have to still pay them on top of that. So imagine you have, let's say, 3 to 5 employees attending these things every single year. That's adding up, and we have no real return on it. So why don't you invest in me? Let me go figure out what's the secret, because we are all in the people business. What we sell, what we do is just a commodity. So why don't you invest in me? Let me go figure out what's the secret. What's the secret of the Chick-fil-A's, the Ritz-Carlton, the Walt Disney Company? Like what makes them so great? And then we'll use our company as a test lab and let's create our own systems. He found reason in that. And my promise was that if I can figure this out, he will never have to attend another seminar or conference because we'll do everything in house. Of course, he saw the rationale in that as a business leader, business owner, and that's where everything started. So that led me to working with some of the top consulting firms, some of the top agencies out there who have worked with some of the top brands out there, like I mentioned with the Ritz-Carlton, the Chick-fil-A's, and what have you. Led me to the Walt Disney Company, went to Magic Kingdom, went underground, studied their retention systems, understanding like what makes them great. And when we talk about retention, it's not about just saying how to keep client, because what these great companies are is they provide great service and great experience, but behind all that is a retention system. The service is just a mechanism, retention is the goal. And so we're able to do that. Coming back, implementing all these in the business, we saw tremendous results. We grew revenue at least 5% each year. We reduced turnover from 35% to 5% in 18 months. We were charging average 30 to 40% more than the nearest competitor. We were just untouchable. And it was in that moment, that's when it hit me and I realized, wait, how many companies and businesses are out there who are looking for a guy like this or looking for a system like this to be able to turn their business around, operationalize the service and the experience where it becomes a system to retain client, but more so make price irrelevant in the process to raise revenues and protect profits as they grow. And so that's how I got here, starting Flair Consulting Group.
That's really amazing and impressive, and I'll tell you why. Because I think a lot of people in your position probably would just be like they wouldn't think that big as far as, you know what, I think there is something bigger that I can do, not only for myself, but for others to help them with their experience. And rather than just continuing to be, I guess, like a cog in the machine, you thought much bigger than that. And just hearing your story from Ghana to today, it just sounds like you're a natural, I hate to say like born leader, but it certainly like almost seems like you were just born to lead, and I feel like you are yet another person I've talked to that just fits that resourceful, outside the box, independent thinking, and whatever that other thing that I can't define as an entrepreneur, that you just have it. And I feel like that's just really amazing. I mean, did you always like know that you wanted to do something entrepreneurial or have a business, or was it just in your blood that like I'm a leader and you're just reacting to life?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, right? And I don't know, like to your question, I really don't know, but I think the business like gave me the opportunity to express myself. That's what I would say. And for me, all this comes back to great leadership, great culture, and like being able to express yourself. And like this is even making me like your question reminded me of a big mistake I see most leaders make in their businesses is wanting their team to care but not showing them they care. Wanting their team to care but not showing them they care. And that's the difference here, right? Like we know great service and great experience is important in our businesses. We know we need to do that consistently. We know we need to build trust. We know we need to show the customer like we are the best out there. But who drive that? Your people, your employees, your team. And so it's how do we create a system around whatever it is that we think or we value so it makes it easier for our team members to deliver that consistently. So in that regard, I think it's coming to understand that the environment really made me blossom, but I think it comes back to leadership, right, of this company and their understanding of the importance of having the right people in the right places. And that's why I would say alignment is better than agreement. Because oftentimes you hear leaders say, well, I don't trust my team. I have to jump in. Or why does everything have to come back to me? I don't know why we keep dealing with these same service issues. I don't know why we have to deal with this. Oh, I only wish if I only had better people. But the question is, it's not because you have wrong people. I think the better question to ask is, have you given them what it takes to be successful? Well, I think that's where the real work begins. And so I never thought about doing this. And like, I think it's important that the audience understand, like, I didn't set out to do X, Y, Z, or ABC, like in that order, right? I was actually working on my graduate degree while I was at the dry cleaner because I was trying to get away from it, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to go on and be a healthcare executive, right? Working in a healthcare system, dreaming to be a CEO of a healthcare system one day, right? That was my mentality. But after the results we got, it's like, wait, but this doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to go do something else? So rather, let me leverage what I have with the expertise I had already built and then create something from it. So, yes, you could say it was already in me because I could kind of connect the dots, I could see the patterns, but the environment created the right opportunity for me to blossom. And that's leadership.
Well, I think you come from a very like a grounded situation. I think that that has served you well as far as winding up where you have, because I, for one, would never like, not, it's certainly no knock on dry cleaning businesses, but I don't think there's a whole lot of us who grow up saying, I want to start a dry cleaning business. Like, that's just not something that I think a lot of people dream of. But I do think, especially for me, now I'm not going to say that I'm going to start my own dry cleaning business tomorrow, but I will say that as I get older, and especially as I talk to people like you and just experience life, and the more I learn about myself, the more I'm like, you know something, I could almost see myself doing something like that. I'm not saying I will, but I think as you evolve in life, you learn about things that might be like really obvious, but you may not even see them until perhaps you're in a situation like you were in, and it just speaks to the journey of life and where life will take you. And I definitely think that your experiences have served you well to bring you to where you are, because I know even though I wound up, uh, I got my degree and I'm in my field 20 some years later, but I'm doing work I never envisioned I'd be doing. I got a television production degree, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be working on a set somewhere. I'm going to be like, working for a huge network, which I guess I have that part of it down, but my day-to-day job is very definitely modest, for lack of a better word to put out there, and you just never know where life is going to take you, and sometimes those answers are more in front of you than you might expect. And I know between that part of my life and the fact that I'm here doing this, it all kind of makes sense, and you just don't know until you're in the trenches.
100%, 100%. And like I like what you just said is so important. I think it's about like flowing and leaning in, right? And there's a great quote by um Edwin, I can't remember his name right now, but he says like a bad system will like a good person will struggle inside a bad system every single time. Edward Derman is the name. Edward Derman is the name, right? And like talking about like where we find ourselves and the environment, like oftentimes like if you can't keep your people or if you can't retain your employees, it's not because you have a bad like you have bad people. It's like you have the wrong system, and the right system will actually make your people more successful. They'll be happier, they'll be excited to come to work. And people like you and myself, Mark, are people who would excel in systems that actually make us be who we are and accept us for who we are, giving us the tools, the systems, the training, and everything that we need to be successful. And that is critical. And it's like reminds me again of the story of Southwest. I don't know if you know that, or many people know this, but Southwest, when they started, they were terrible, like terrible, terrible in turnaround times. And in the airline industry, turnaround times are everything. Like on time arrival, on time departures, the crews getting the planes ready for the next flight. Like they were terrible. But Southwest did not go and say, well, what is the best airline doing in our industry? And let's go and copy that. And I'm saying this and I'll land the plane soon. But they realized that the NASCAR pit crews were doing what it was taking them 30 minutes to 40 minutes. They were doing it in like 30 seconds. So Southwest realized they had a wrong system, went studied the right system and brought it into their business, because it wouldn't have made any sense to fire everyone in their company and say, you guys are not going to help us achieve what we are trying to do. You are the wrong kind of people we are looking for. But they realized and they understood it's all about systems. And so the point is, sometimes your people is not a problem. Sometimes you don't have a people problem. You have a system problem. And even more so, sometimes you have to go as far outside your industry, as far outside what you are comfortable with, as far as what you don't know, and be okay with that. Like a guy like me wouldn't have gotten here when I knew nothing about dry cleaning, didn't even know there was an industry like that, and get here. And with the same story as you, Mark, like there's no way you'd have been here if you had just been comfortable in what you were used to. You had to go out there and fail forward. And that's the beauty about a company that focuses on its employees understanding how important that is in the overall customer experience and the overall retention systems, and building the right systems around them to be successful.
I totally agree with you. And when I listen to you talk, I not only think of people I've worked with within certain systems who may have been underachieving and may have just been not in the right system, but then once they moved on, their career just really took off and flourished. And I know not to use other people, I'll use myself as an example as well, because I have been in systems where it was just a disaster, and not only was I having trouble reaching my potential in those systems, but other people were. And as a result, even though I may think a lot of myself and think I have a lot of potential, those systems were not allowing me to tap into it and reach my full potential. Now, some of that, when these things happen, sometimes it's up to the individual, but there's only so much that you can do because sometimes it gets political and there isn't a whole lot that an individual can do. And that's kind of like the unfortunate thing. And I think that's where also, in addition to having a good system, having a good leader who can kind of like let go of their ego a little bit and recognize these things is really important. And I know that's easier said than done. That's not always easy to find in the world, but I feel like the combination of a lot of these points you're making, especially systematic, plus having a leader who has those skills and the presence of mind to say, hey, this person has more potential. I need to coach them. I need to do something with them. That is half the battle. And one of the things that takes is energy and time, and everybody, not everybody has that.
100%. I mean, energy and time. Not everyone has that. And like, even like to add to it, because I think sometimes, Mark, I think it's important to really like drive it back to the numbers, because that's what leaders care about, right? But the research shows turnover is so dang expensive. I mean, it can take half to two times the annual salary to replace someone if they are a rock star. Half the annual salary. Let's even use that, right? Just to replace them. But imagine someone has been with you 10, 20 years and they just leave. Like, the institutional leverage that just got lost is ridiculous. So turnover is expensive, and all this is to ensure that we are building the right systems that make people thrive, so you can better serve your customers and the community at large. Like, this is not just saying, oh, we take great care of our employees. How? Like, do you have the systems in place? Have you ensured that everyone is taken care of? Because oftentimes, and research actually shows this, that employee engagement are the least among sales and service team members, which is scary when you think about that, because these are the people, the exact people, in fact, who interact with our customers the most. So how can they be the least engaged in the workplace? Then the research also showed that as you go down the org chart, right, the people who have the longest tenure are the least engaged as well. So oftentimes the people who have there 20, 10, 15 years are the least engaged. Why? Because no one is looking at them. Everyone thinks, Mark has been here 10 years, he's all right. Don't worry about Mark, right? And they're doing all the nice things and great things for the new employees coming in, forgetting about the old ones who have been there. So it's probably just out of inertia or due to the golden handcuffs. So the old guys don't leave, because it's like, where am I going to get a better paying job right now? And so they stay. but that does not mean they are engaged. And so it's critical and it's important that this is not just about building systems for building systems sake. It's for the entire health of your business and how much profitable you can be as you scale.
You again made an amazing point. There's something to be said for even if you're not working to your full ability or full potential, you're a part of the culture. You know the systems, you know the processes, and there is a lot of value in that, even if you're not reaching your full potential. Because let's face it, we're all human beings. We all learn differently. We all work a little differently. We all approach everything differently. And that's even within these systems that sometimes can be pretty rigid. Sometimes they're a little more loose, but we all take in the world and do things a little bit differently. However, there is still value in those people. And I feel like what you're doing, especially with the retention drift cycle, is very important because you're touching on not just, training or, employees learning something new. You're talking about like the ability to retain not only the customer, but the employee, and to get everybody on the same page and to get the most out of everything. And I feel like we don't always see enough of that in today's world. So I think it's really great that you've stepped up and you're trying to make a difference in that way.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think when we talk about the retention, and I'm glad you connected the employee and the customer because the experience is driven by the employees. But the reason why most companies struggle so much is because they go through the retention cycle. So in the beginning of any business, the service is great, experience fantastic, right? And that's because everything is done on the three P's: proximity, personality, and people. So, yeah, proximity, the owner, the founder is everywhere, and so he can touch everything that is happening. He can correct things, he can make things right instantly, right? Then personality is because of, well, man, Mark is just like that. Don't mind Mark, you know. It's just people, right? Because there are no standards, there are no systems. And then people, well, depending on which location you go to and depending on who you meet, it could be a problem, right? So that is an issue. But when a business begins to grow, that consistency, that predictability that a customer is used to when you are smaller, like slowly disappears if you have not built the right service systems to keep up with growth. Because what is going to happen is there's going to be an operational drift. Because now you have more people touching the work, touching the experience, touching the customer. You have more employees, you have more locations if you are growing rapidly. And so growth does not break your business. It's inconsistency that does. Because that inconsistency to the customer is a risk. And if the customer cannot trust you, cannot rely on you, then the ultimate thing we are fighting for here is trust and ultimately loyalty. So when the business get bigger and because they never built the right systems to keep up with growth, that inconsistency the customer experiences leads to customer behavior change. Because now the customer can trust you, and that starts that retention cycle drift. And then by the time it shows up on the profit and loss, if you are lucky 6 months, worst of 18 months. But at that point, it's probably too late. So the whole point of what we do at Flair Consulting Group is to help you resurface this retention drift that is likely to happen due to growth and as a result of operational drift in your business, to resurface that, build the right systems so you can grow and scale your business with the same service and the experience that made you great. Because oftentimes your product or your service is just a commodity. I mean, now even talking about product, anyone can go to China and make the same thing cheaper and probably better, So it's not about your product necessarily. Like people return to you or do business with you because they like you, because you are predictable, they can count on you, they know what they are going to get, you are consistent. Like it's all the auxiliary things before your product or service. So I'm not saying you don't need a good product or a good service. You need it, but to actually win the game, like you need a good product to stay or be in the game. But to win the game, it's all about your retention system, which a great service and a great experience is the mechanism to do that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with the actual experience because I'm one of those people that I'm very like loyal to a lot of things that I patronize, whether it's a restaurant, a grocery store, even buying vinyl. There's places that I love going to more than others, and I know some of it comes down to like the selection or what they have on the menu. And again, if you have a certain item at a restaurant on your menu and I become addicted to it, you most likely have a customer for a very, very long time. But even as loyal as I can be, there are deal breakers. And I know there's a pizza establishment up in the DC area where I lived for like 10 years or so. And actually, it was longer than that. Uh, Amazing how much time has gone by. But anyway, uh, there was a pizza place I loved going to. They had a couple different locations and loved their pizza. I was like really like addicted to it. It tasted so good. But one location, at least until I like kind of got to know them and they simmered down, they would like yell at you when you walked in to order. And it's like, why are you yelling at me? Like, I like your food. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you? There was another location that was very similar to that, and they just would. I remember. I shouldn't say I remember because it was a long time ago. But the one thing I do remember is the last time I went to the other location, the service was just horrible. I can't remember if they just flat out blew me off or they like refused to bring out like my food, or I'm not sure what it was. It was probably something like that. But just even though the other experiences were good, that one time I was like, that's it. And I never went back. That's how quickly even somebody as loyal as me can get disinterested in a brand or in, an establishment for, business you want to throw out there. That's how fast it can happen. And it might not seem like it matters much to lose one customer, but especially if you're a smaller business, I think it's very meaningful.
100%. And like, you just gave me a thought here in terms of thinking about this, because what you just said makes a lot of sense. If you don't define it, they will decide it. And oftentimes, the reason why most businesses struggle is because they have not clearly defined what their standards are. And that's why I mentioned the three P's: proximity, people, and personalities. They leave the service and the standards to these things. So if you don't define what great looks like, who we are, if you don't have an identity about you, and I guarantee you, if you think about all the world class brands out there, all businesses that you love to do business with, there's an identity about them. So if you're going to do anything, it's not another training, because training is not the issue. It's clearly defining who you are and then doing a diagnosis. But it's important that you have to define clearly what great looks like, because if you don't, then now your employees are trying to fill in the gaps. So if you say, oh, just take care of the customer, just be nice, what does that mean? Because be nice to you is completely different to me. We all grew up having different backgrounds. And the reason why I think that happens is most leaders make the cardinal mistake by thinking that great service is common sense. But common sense is not common practice. So if you don't define it, they will decide it. And so if you are dealing with inconsistency in your business right now when it comes to the service or the experience, it's probably because you think these two things. You think customer service is common sense, and you think because of that you don't have to give them what it takes, and you have not clearly defined what great looks like. And so all your employees are doing is, instead of executing, they are interpreting what does take care of the customer mean, what does being nice mean. And so they are deciding that. On the back end, or on the flip side, your customers are also doing the same. They are also deciding with their wallet, deciding, can I trust them, can I go back, should I go back, I didn't like how they treated me the last time, yeah, I like their food, but I don't like how they make me feel. Customers feel before everything else. And so it's all about that consistency. And if you are inconsistent, then that's going to lead to trust leaking and overall revenue dropping.
And you know something? I don't need to be like best friends with everybody that I, patronize or need customer service from. I know sometimes when I'm thinking of a particular place that I go to every week for a delicious hamburger, this establishment just makes the best hamburger. I go every week. They're super friendly. They always ask about my wife. They ask how I'm doing. And it's like the perfect touch. Like they really care about my order. They know my order because again, I'm Mr. Loyal. I go every week. They know me. I get the same thing. And I love that because they don't ever like necessarily cross the line of like being overly friendly or overly personal. So you don't want to do that, in my opinion. You also, there's places, and this kind of speaks to the, how do we all define what good customer service is and what friendly is or what is friendly enough. There's some people that can probably accept the yelling pizza guys that I used to see in the DC area. And, their attitude's probably like, well, I don't care. They have good food. I don't care. And, that's a genuine reaction that a lot of people have. So when it comes down to it, sometimes it's just the product and they don't need to be treated a certain way. Me, for whatever reason, while I don't necessarily need a secret handshake or need to be best friends, I do need to at least like be treated with respect and at least a friendly greeting. You don't have to slam on the table, which is something the pizza guys would do. They would just slam on the table, two slice. And I'm like, why, why are we doing this? It
Yeah,
would just be like very harsh, but they
it's not
made good
necessary.
food. Yeah, but I went there enough because my colleagues like going there, and I'd be like, oh, it's these guys, they're so like harsh. But I
Yeah.
kept going, and then they saw me and they recognized me, and then they became like pretty cool. So it's kind of like a weird story, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I'm kind of all over the place. But
No, I think you are bringing something very, very important to the table in terms of the mindset shift, because all this we are talking about, if you are going to build a retention system and you understand the importance and value of great service, is understanding that customer service is not a department, it's an identity. And that's a mindset shift. If you think it's a department, that's why you have to clearly define what good looks like, what great looks like. Because I did not understand this until I was training to become a manager at a dry cleaner. And at the time when I got there, I had to start from the bottom. And so as the new guy, I had a code I had to make. Like we had to mark in the clothes. So this is a sport code. It's Michael Kors. It's navy. Maybe the button is replacement. It has a tear. The customer wants us to deliver it. Doesn't want us to deliver. Whatever, right? So, but I had to put it under the right customer and their preferences. And not only that, I had to mark in 40 pieces every hour. So as a new guy, I'm trying to keep up, and sometimes I'll cut the corners. And so it's like the people in the back who were cleaning will come to me and say, "Hey, Francis, this should have been dry cleaning, not laundry. You put it in the right bag," which can be dangerous because they can damage the garment if it's not in the right bag. Or the delivery driver will come to me and say, "Hey, this customer didn't have anything delivered, or he didn't want us to pick up or deliver anything this week because they were out of town." But I didn't get order. I'm like, we got it done. Who cares? I don't mind. Like, I don't care. I'm trying to make up my numbers, right? And when I had the opportunity to become a manager, they asked me to now go deliver the clothes. The driver drove because they knew the route, but I had to go to the back of the van, get it closed, deliver it at the designated area the customer access to, or pick up where they wanted us to pick up. And I kid you not, Mark, one time I delivered clothes to a customer who had nothing that week. They had nothing that week. Thank God they brought it back, but do you know what that did? It opened a Pandora's box. Because now that customer is thinking, whoa, if they can do this to me, have they done, like, sent my stuff to other people that perhaps I'm missing something in my closet? And maybe that customer never brought it back, you know? So thankfully, we're able to resolve that, showing them, because we had good technologies that we tracked everything. So we're able to show that. But it was in that moment, like going through that experience and that embarrassment, having to call the customer and explain and do all that. That's when I understood that the guy in the back doing the cleaning is my customer. The driver is my customer. Because even though I was not interacting with the customer directly when I was marking in the clothes, they were counting on me for me to do my job. And just as I was counting on them for them to do their job. But if a customer walked in and said they needed it done by Friday, and I put that in the note, the people in the back should also ensure that they got it clean on time. So when a customer comes in to pick it up, it was ready. But that was the only time, and that moment showed me, wow, I have customers. Even though I'm not interacting with customers directly, everyone within my company was my customer. And that's the whole point. If you think about customer service being a department, you're just going to shove it, it's impossible. Like, it's an identity. It's either you have it or you don't. And this is my story, but as a consumer, have you ever ordered something where the salesperson, right, back to salespeople again, right, with the research, the salesperson tells you, "Hey, I can get it to you by Tuesday." You're like, "Sure, let's do it." For some reason, Tuesday comes and you don't get it. In your mind, you are thinking, "Man, they lied to me," especially the salesperson. But what if the information got to shipping? Let's assume the information got to shipping. It was stated clearly that, hey, this is priority, and so ship it ASAP. For some reason, shipping missed it. Whose fault was it? Most likely shipping, right? For the sake of this argument, shipping missed to ship it on time. But the customer is not thinking, "Man, the sales department lied to me." The customer is thinking, "Man, company A, B, or C lied to me. They are unreliable. They are unpredictable. I cannot trust them." So customers return to experiences that they can trust. And it's not about your department. It's not about who did things right, who didn't, who got it wrong, who... No, the customer don't care about that. The customer only cares about how to get their stuff, or how do you take care of them. And another prime example is just ideas flowing, Mark, is when Amazon, a few years ago, when they said, "We're going to do 1 day, 2 day shipping," we are like, "Man, what's going on up there? Like, are they crazy? How are they going to be able to do that? That's insane. How? 1 day? Prime? That's crazy." They did it. And now the same consumers are going around and saying, "Hey, but why can't I get my stuff That's if they are interacting with other businesses. They're like, why can't I get my stuff within a day or two? Amazon does it. Why can't you do it? We're all doing it as consumers. And that's the mindset we need to have, that this thing, it's not a department, it's an identity, and you have to own every piece, every bit of it. Where the customer does not see department, they see the whole company, and any breakdown at the front line, whatever or whoever your front line is, whatever makes sense in your world, any breakdown there is a complete reflection of your whole entire company. And that's a mindset shift.
I totally agree. And I feel like everything you're saying is so universal, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're just, that shouldn't put the word just in front of CEO, but you're not the owner of the company, but you're the CEO, a manager, whatever it is. Even, if you're just working within a system, I feel like a lot of what you're talking about here is applicable for all of us, and you just shared so much wisdom in this episode. I can't believe we have run out of time already. This time went so fast, and you shared a lot of great information for all of us to walk away with. And now this is your opportunity to make one more mark on this episode by sharing how we can get a hold of you, how we can work with you, and anything else you want to share.
Absolutely. Like before we get to that, I had a thought as you were speaking, Mark, and I think it's important that we get this across, and I just felt to share this. But wherever you are listening to this, watching this, whatever that looks like, I want to ask you a question. What is your biggest expense right now? Whatever that you are doing, what is your biggest expense? You can pause this and come back to it. But oftentimes when I hear this, I hear payroll, I hear marketing, I hear advertising. That is great. But can I tell you a secret? Your biggest expense is dissatisfied customers. And the goal of every business is to acquire and to keep customers. If you have customers, if you have people who pay the bills, regardless of how you realize your sales in your business, it all comes from customers. And the goal should be to take care of those customers, because without customers, you have no business. So at the end of the day, are you taking care of the people who take care of you, of your business, that they can also in turn take care of you? And that's what this is all about. By building a retention system, delivering great service and great experience, using that as a mechanism, because that's what every customer cares about.
Right on. Oh, I think much like everything else, that is super wise. I'm not even going to touch that or add anything. Did you want to let us know how we can get a hold of you, work with
Yes.
you?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I mean, in fact, everywhere at Francis Flair. Actually, if that is okay, we actually have a free tool, Mark. If your audience would like to get access to that, more than welcome. We have what we call the retention risk score. It's a free assessment. It takes about 3 to 4 minutes, and you can take that and know exactly where retention risk is forming as a result of your service systems currently as your business grows. But you can find me anywhere at Francis Flair, predominantly on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me. You go to flairconsultinggroup.com, and sometimes we do free trainings, free masterclasses. You're welcome to come to those. But if you do the assessment, I think you should get more details on that.
All righty. Well, Francis Flair, amazing guy, amazing perspective, and tons of wisdom. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be on. Mark my words, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. And I, again, am your host, Mark Schmidt, and you just listened to Mark My Words. So thanks again to Francis for being on the show, and thank you all for listening. I'll be back with another episode next time. Bye for now. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.